The Monkey's Paw. So The Monkey's Paw is one of those stories almost everyone's heard of. What I like about it is how normal it feels at the start. There's no warning that anything bad is about to happen. It just drops you into a regular evening with a regular family and lets everything go wrong from there. So the story starts with this ordinary family. Mr. White, his wife, and their adult son Herbert. They're sitting at home one night just doing normal stuff, playing chess, talking, and killing time. Nothing feels ominous yet. They're waiting for a guest. His name is Sergeant Major Morris. He's an old friend of Mr. White's, and he's been traveling all over the world because he's in the army. So they're talking and listening to his stories. Eventually, Mr. White asks him about something strange that Major Morris mentioned before during their conversation. Morris doesn't want to talk about it, but eventually, after some pushing, he pulls it out. It's a dried-up monkey's paw. It looks gross and useless, but Morris insists it has a history. According to him, the paw was enchanted by an old fakir so that it could grant 3 wishes to 3 different people. The whole point, supposedly, was to show how dangerous it is to mess with fate. And Morris is very clear about one thing. This thing is bad news. He says the wishes always come true, but not in a way you'd ever want. He even admits that the first man who used it wished for death as his final wish. Morris himself used it too, and you can tell it didn't end well. At this point, any sensible person would throw it away. Morris actually tries to do that. He talks about how the wishes always come with consequences and tries to throw the paw into the fire, but Mr. White stops him and keeps it instead. That should have been the end of it. But, of course, it isn't. Later that night, despite all the warnings, Mr. White decides to make a wish. Not a big one, just 200 pounds so he can pay off the house. As he makes the wish, he notices the paw moving in his hand slightly. Everyone kinda laughs it off, including Herbert. He jokes about the money falling from the sky or someone knocking at the door to deliver it. Then they all go to bed. The next day, Herbert goes to work at a factory. Everything feels normal again, but there's this lingering tension. And then someone knocks on their door. A man from the factory arrives at the house. He looked awkward and nervous. He explains that Herbert was caught in machinery and killed. The factory offers the family compensation money, 200 pounds. Exactly the amount Mr. White wished for. That's the moment where the story fully clicks into place. The paw didn't create money. It just rearranged reality in the most cruelly efficient way possible. Mr. White is completely destroyed by guilt. He knows that this is his fault. And then, days pass. The house becomes silent with grief. Mrs. White is completely shattered. She fixates on the paw. She convinces herself that if it granted one wish, it can undo this too. She demands they use the second wish to bring their son back. However, Mr. White hesitates to ask for another wish. He knows something will be wrong, but eventually he gives in. They wish their son back to life. That night, there's a knock at the door. Mrs. White rushes to open it, convinced that her son has returned. She's convinced it's Herbert. Mr. White, meanwhile, is frozen in terror. He starts to panic. He realizes his son didn't die peacefully, his body was mangled, and he's been buried for days. Whatever is standing outside is not going to be right. And also the fact that Mrs. White has asked for Herbert to return. Not how Herbert should return. As the knocking continues louder, Mr. White desperately searches for the paw. Mrs. White is still fumbling with the door, crying out to her son. At the last possible moment, Mr. White makes the third wish. And suddenly, the knocking stops. Mrs. White opens the door. But there's nothing outside. Just an empty road and the night beyond it. And that's how the story ends. The lottery. So its story takes place in this small unnamed town on a very normal summer morning. Kids are out of school, running around and picking up stones and stuffing them in their pockets. And that detail feels throwaway at first. Like, okay, kids throwing rocks, whatever. But it's doing a lot more work than you realize. People slowly start gathering in the town square. Men come in talking about crops and weather. Women show up a little later, standing next to their husbands. It feels like a picnic or a town fair. Nothing feels tense yet. It's intentionally boring at first. And everyone's there because of the lottery. It's just something they do every year. No one questions why they do it. It's just tradition. Some neighboring villages have stopped doing it, and people briefly mention that, but it's brushed off as foolish or wrong. The lottery itself is run by this guy named Mr. Summers. He's the one who organizes it every year. He has this old black box that holds slips of paper. The box is falling apart, splintered, and faded, but nobody wants to replace it because it's always been there. The box sucks. Everyone knows it sucks. But tradition matters more than logic. There's also Mr. Graves helping out, which is not subtle, but still kind of funny in a dark way. Before anything starts, Mr. Summers calls out the heads of households. Only the men go up first. Women don't draw unless they're widowed. As people draw their slips, some of them are joking, some are nervous. One guy says it's not fair that some families have more people than others. Another man rushes his turn like he wants it over as fast as possible. There's this weird mix of casual humor and low-key dread. Then Bill Hutchinson draws a slip, and it has a black mark on it. The mood changes instantly. Everyone knows what it means. And Tessie Hutchinson, Bill's wife, starts protesting right away. She says it wasn't fair. And what's interesting is that earlier, Tessie was totally relaxed. She almost arrived late, laughing and saying she forgot what day it was. She wasn't against the lottery at all. She's only against it now. So, now they do the second round. The Hutchinson family has to draw again, but this time each member draws. Tessie, their kids, and eventually Tessie draws the marked paper. The townspeople start picking up stones. And this is where the opening scene with the kids comes back around. The kids were collecting stones from the beginning because they already knew what today was. This wasn't a surprise. Everyone, including the children, has been preparing for this the entire time. Tessie is still yelling. She keeps saying it isn't fair. She keeps trying to argue, but nobody cares. Her friends, her neighbors, people she was chatting with minutes ago, they all step back and join in. And then they stone her to death. That's it. The story ends right there. The real horror in this story is that the village peoples aren't shown as evil or anything. The story is basically about how traditions can become violent and meaningless, and people will still defend them as long as they're familiar. And Tessie isn't some brave rebel who always opposed the lottery. She only objects when she's the one chosen, which makes it uncomfortable because most people would probably react the same way. That's why this story caused such a backlash when it was first published. People wrote angry letters to Shirley Jackson. Some thought it was anti-American. Some literally asked where these villages were located, like they thought it was real. And that reaction kind of proves the point. It shows how easily people participate in cruelty when it's normalized and justified by routine. The yellow wallpaper. So the narrator is a woman who's been brought to this big old house in the countryside for the summer. It's technically a rented mansion, kind of decaying, but a grand mansion. The story is basically written like a series of private journal entries, which already makes it feel a little too intimate. You're basically inside this woman's head the whole time, and that's kind of the point. Her husband, John, is a physician, and he believes she's suffering from what they vaguely call nervousness. Postpartum depression is heavily implied, but it's never named outright because at the time it wasn't really understood or taken seriously. John's solution is rest, complete rest. She's not allowed to work or write. She's not even allowed to think too much. Everything that gives her any sense of control or identity is taken away for her own good. And because John is a doctor and her husband, his word is final. He talks to her gently, but also dismissively, like she's a child. They put her in this upstairs room that used to be a nursery. The room has barred windows. The bed is nailed to the floor. There are rings in the walls like restraints, and the wallpaper is horrible. It's this ugly yellow color, peeling, stained, with a pattern that makes no sense. The narrator hates it immediately. She keeps saying how disturbing it is, how it makes her uncomfortable. At first, she seems mostly sad and tired. She knows something is wrong with her, but she also knows that the treatment isn't helping. She secretly writes anyway, hiding it from John and his sister Jenny, who helps run the house. Writing is the only thing keeping her sane, but even that exhausts her because she's constantly afraid of being caught. As the days go by, the wallpaper starts to take over her thoughts. She studies it because there's nothing else to do. She notices the pattern doesn't repeat properly. It looks chaotic, like it's moving if you stare too long. She starts seeing shapes in it. At first, it's just vague forms, but then she becomes convinced there's a woman trapped behind the pattern. The woman in the wallpaper seems to crawl behind the bars of the pattern, shaking it, trying to get out. At night, the narrator thinks the wallpaper moves more freely. During the day, it's subdued, almost hiding itself. She starts seeing the same woman creeping outside in the garden, along the road, everywhere. And no one else notices. The narrator is completely alone with her thoughts. Anytime she tries to explain how she feels, John shuts it down. He tells her she's imagining things, which just pushes her further inward. Eventually, the narrator starts identifying with the woman in the wallpaper. She believes the woman is trapped the same way she is, locked inside a role she can't escape. Near the end of the story, John leaves for the day, and the narrator decides she's going to free the woman. She tears the wallpaper off the walls with her hands, crawling along the floor as she does it. She says she's finally gotten out, and she won't be put back. When John comes home and breaks into the room, he faints at the sight of her. She just keeps crawling around the room, stepping over his unconscious body, following the path she's worn into the floor. And that's how the story ends. The narrator doesn't start out insane. She starts out unheard, controlled, dismissed. The treatment meant to cure her is what destroys her. The Giving Tree. So the story starts really simple. There's a little boy and there's an apple tree. That's basically it. There's no names or setting details beyond that. Just a boy and a tree, and the tree loves the boy. He climbs up her trunk, eats her apples, and sleeps in her shade. And the tree is happy. That line keeps coming back, and the tree was happy. At this point, the relationship is pure. The boy isn't asking for anything. He's just playing. The tree isn't sacrificing anything major. She's just being what she is, a tree. Apples grow back, then time passes. The boy grows older. He stops coming every day. And when he finally comes back, it's different. He says he wants money. The tree doesn't have money, obviously, but she tells him to take her apples and sell them in the city. And he does. He takes all the apples. And the tree is happy. She's still happy because giving is how she measures love. More time passes. The boy comes back again. This time he wants a house. He wants a family. The tree tells him to cut off her branches and build a house with them. And he does. He cuts them all off. Now the tree is just a trunk. There's no apples or branches, and again, the tree is happy. But the happiness feels thinner now. Even as a kid reading it, there's something uncomfortable about this part, because the tree is clearly losing herself. She's being reduced piece by piece, and the boy never really asks how she feels about it. He just takes. Then the boy comes back again, now a grown man. He says he wants a boat so he can sail away. He's tired, he wants to escape. The tree has nothing left except her trunk, and she tells him to cut her down and make a boat, and he does. At this point, the tree is no longer even really a tree. She's a stump, and the book doesn't even say the tree was happy here, because it's the first time the story admits that something is wrong. Then finally, the boy comes back one last time. He's an old man now. He doesn't want anything. He says he's too tired. He doesn't need apples or branches or boats. And the tree says she doesn't have anything left to give. All she has is a stump. And the boy sits down on it, and the tree is happy. There's not really an explanation or moral spelled out, just that image of an old man sitting on a stump that used to be a tree. The Jaunt by Stephen King. So the story takes place in a future where humanity has figured out teleportation. They call it the Jaunt. People use it to travel huge distances instantly, including from Earth to Mars. It's completely normal in this world. It's regulated and safe as long as one rule is followed. You have to be unconscious. The story is framed around a man named Mark Oates talking to his children while they're waiting to jaunt as a family. They're about to travel. Mark starts explaining how the jaunt works, the way a dad would casually, like this is just common knowledge. He explains that the technology was invented by a scientist named Victor Carun. Caruni discovered a way to shift matter through another dimension or space. Physically, the transfer takes almost no time at all. But very early on, something went wrong. When Carun sent animals through the jaunt while they were awake, they didn't come back normal. Some died, some came back alive, but insane, completely shattered mentally. Then Carun tried sending animals through while they were sedated. Those animals came back perfectly fine. That's when the rule became clear. The jaunt is only safe if you're unconscious. From that point on, all jaunt terminals use gas. It's automatic. People are knocked out before transport and wake up at their destination. At one point, Mark tells the story of Carun's wife. She wanted to know what it was like. She deliberately went through the jaunt while awake. She came out alive, but completely broken. Her hair had turned white. Her mind was gone. She spent the rest of her life screaming about how long it was, repeating that phrase over and over. While he's talking, one of his children, Ricky, is listening very closely. Ricky isn't scared. He's fascinated. He keeps asking questions. He wants specifics. He wants to understand what longer than you think actually means. And then the family is called forward to board. People are lying down. The gas starts flowing. And this is where the story turns. Ricky holds his breath. He does it on purpose. He wants to experience the jaunt awake. When they arrive at the destination, Ricky comes out alive. But he's not okay. He's screaming and laughing, repeating the phrase over and over. It's longer than you think. He can't respond to anyone. Whatever he experienced has completely destroyed him. There's no explanation of what the jaunt space really is, and no description of what longer actually means in measurable terms. That's what makes the story unsettling. Anyway, that's the jaunt. It's one of those stories that doesn't really scare you while you're reading it, it just kind of sits there afterward and messes with your head. If you like this breakdown, you know what to do. I'll be back with another story soon.